We're leaving this part in at the start for fun. All right.
delete it.
No, it's cool. Leave it in. Okay. Shh. Hey everyone, it's the Groovy Movie Man with a very special podcast today. I have actual guests this time. This isn't going to be another one of my podcasts where I sit in a dark room alone and talk about movies. So yeah, we're talking all Endgame stuff today.
And MCU in general extension.
Yes.
Let's see.
Yeah. All right, so let's introduce our special guests. We got Zach.
I'm Zach. Hi.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Jack. We have a fifth person in this room, but they're not speaking.
They might start talking later. We'll see. Also, I will be going by the codename Mark for today, so keep that in mind.
It's
Groovy
definitely not
is
his
Mark.
real name. Definitely not.
The way what the fuck are you doing?
Okay.
You're saying it as if to imply it is.
I don't know what
Why
you're
do you
talking
even
about.
mention that it's not your real name?
A
Do you have issues with lying?
little bit. Just,
Okay. Now we're just gonna.
I have a moral compass, Kyle.
Oh bullshit. Okay. Moving swiftly.
Oh, wait, hang on.
Swiftly onwards.
So just gonna say, for everyone, you might have noticed we're doing a lot of swearing. Usually, I like to censor my videos, try and keep it as family friendly as possible. Unfortunately, we're all gutter mouths, so we're not doing that today.
None of that shit.
So if there's a child listening, just cover their ears or something.
If there is a single child that still cares about cursing, please leave the room. If there's a child that watches groovy movies, congratulations, you're the only one. Leave the room. The rest of you sweaty old people, stay around. Let's talk Endgame.
It'll be good at the end of this, like, for the 5 people who watch it to decide who their favourite extra is, so they can demand to bring
No
him
one's
back.
going to remember any specific parts of it. Like, people are just going to vote for Jenna.
Can everyone please make a tier list of us? That's the hot meme right now.
Okay,
Okay.
now this is devolving into
Yeah,
conversation.
alright, okay. There will be time codes in the description, though. I'm going to put that in. Alright, so we've done the intros. Okay, so let's start with general thoughts on the MCU. We want to go in a circle? Oh, actually, wait, before we do that, how many times has everyone seen Endgame? I've seen it twice.
I've seen it 3 times.
Kyle?
This is my first time.
First
my
time.
first time. I'm an Endgame virgin.
Jenna?
First time.
Okay, that's the 5th person, by the way, everyone.
You're not going to hear her, but we'll talk to her.
Also,
We'll act like she's in the room.
She's our muse. Let's move on. So, general thoughts on the MCU. I generally don't like it all that much.
this is the
mostly-
contrarian opinion.
Yeah, I'm hardened hipster cynicism at this point. There's a variety of different factors for it, but it's a lot of the same tropes keep popping up, and I'm just getting sort of worn down. And while that doesn't carry all the way through the podcast, there's a few things that continue to bug me. If we're talking generally MCU, my biggest sticking point is the big, dumb battle that doesn't mean anything. Because that will be in every movie till the end of this bloody cinematic
Doctor
universe.
Strange. Sorry. That's not in my throat.
There's a few exceptions, but even then, there's still a grand amount of time and effort and money spent on huge bloody exchanges where really not much is actually accomplished. It's the special effects show of the movie without much characterization aside from the omnipresent quipping and the CGI, which is practically a character of its own right.
I'm pretty much with Kyle on this one. I'm not huge on MCU. I've watched most of the movies, but it gets tedious and boring after a while. You see the same things popping up, and they basically all have the same story. Well, not same story, but the same basic plot lines, and it gets repetitive.
Just story.
Yeah, but not story.
I honestly don't mind. With the current sort of 3 a year, that's maybe a bit much. If it was 2 a year, that'd be a good amount for me in terms of just something to do twice a year. I generally, to just go and sit and have fun, that's mostly what I go and see them for. And like, some of them are good, and some of them are very much shit. And yeah, that's basically my view of the whole thing.
Alright, I think it's, to me, like, so first of all, I just need to say this now so I can forever use this as proof. Whenever someone accuses me of being a biased Marvel fanboy, I am friends with people who don't like the MCU. And I'm totally fine with that.
Yes, you've got one black friend. Also, this podcast is cursed because we've got a copy of Thor the Dark World in this room.
There is a copy of Thor the Dark World in here.
But, yes, general thoughts on the MCU, now that you've been confirmed it's not racist?
So you're not a shill?
I was gonna make, like, a joke earlier. Because Jenna, so we have one female, but there also needs to, like, be a...
Yes, one female. Of course you call them...
You're not a sexist either.
MCU! Let's talk MCU. Mark.
Well, I kind of love it. They're not all perfect, but when I saw the Avengers back in 2012, that was the film that made me want to be a filmmaker. So it's had a big impact for me over the last, was it the 7th year now, I think it is, especially. And, like, they're not all good. Like, as we said, we've got a copy of Thor the Dark World in here, so this podcast is cursed. That being said, there hasn't been one yet where I've felt like I've wasted my money. And it's kind of almost like it's a thing to look forward to every year, going into all of these. So I say it's been pretty good. It's a miracle that I think it works as well as it does, because every other attempt so far has fallen apart so spectacularly. So it's kind of like an achievement in of itself at this point. And I mean, does it really matter what we think anyway? I mean, Disney's going to own everything in the next 10 years, and they'll be our overlords, so...
Yeah, that doesn't mean they own public opinion. Well,
not yet.
Until the media manages to orchestrate that. But let's not talk conspiracy theories, let's talk more about...
What do you mean, conspiracy? What do you mean? Hang on, Kyle. The internet thrives on conspiracy theories.
We're not talking about the chemicals in the water to making the frogs gay. Let's,
General
general thoughts on the MCU.
So I think, is that everything we want to say generally before we move into more?
Do we want to talk about, like, main story beats in the MCU that we keep seeing popping up and why we like or dislike them?
Or do we just want to talk about, like, Infinity War as a general lead-in to Endgame?
Infinity War almost deserves its own segment because they're two halves of the same movie almost. It's they're so interrelated with just Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel being inserted so that they can have those characters show up.
Can I just say quickly before this point? So no spoilers for Endgame yet, but spoilers for every other MCU movie from here on out.
Spoilers throughout the whole thing, really. Why are you watching this if you don't watch movies?
Look, if you've made it this far without being spoiled for Endgame, well, first off, congratulations. Second off, stop watching and or stop listening and go and see these movies because even I kind of liked Endgame.
Dun dun dun!
Come on, they don't even know me enough for that to be dramatic. Let's see. But yeah, other general story beats. Is there any, like, motifs or any particular things of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you guys want to discuss here before we delve into Infinity War?
Here is one big issue I have with the Infinity War, and not Infinity War, apology. The MCU as a whole. And it may not be a thing that everyone gets, and it may just be because I'm an old, cynical man and I've started to pick up on these things. But they will throw a red herring bad character in, and then do this big reveal as if this other character was the bad guy all along. But you've been sitting there looking at this guy going, you're the bad guy. And that could just be me. But I know in most of the MCU films, I've been sitting there going, there's someone orchestrating all of this. It's not the guy you think it is. Jenna can vouch for that. I've sat there with movies and I've gone, he's going to be the bad guy. And halfway through the movie, he's the bad guy.
Do you have a specific example?
Yeah.
Black Panther?
I haven't seen Black Panther.
Oh, good choice.
The thing is, though, with that, though, Killmonger
Panther.
still is a villain. You know he's a villain, even if you don't know he's the main villain type thing. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily an example.
Well, in Iron Man, for example, when there's...
Obadiah Stane.
Yeah, Obadiah Stane. He was a big one. He was the one where I went instantly... Even from the poster, you could tell he was the bad guy, because he was the guy with the goatee. Yeah, but he was also the guy in the poster, and you guys can't see it, but he's the one with the head partially down that's like a looming figure in the poster. He's obviously the bad guy. But then in the second one, with Whiplash, and then you saw that Hamill was the bad guy, and Hamill was actually helping Whiplash all along, and there's all this stuff, and it's like, you know that something's going to happen. One of
He
these guys is
wasn't,
gonna
though.
help.
He didn't start helping Whiplash. Because I can remember Iron Man 2.
Well-
He didn't start until after Whiplash attacked the first time. He's like, hey, you know, you made Tony Stark look bad. I hate Tony Stark. Let's team up.
Yeah, but you could
I
tell
can't
that he was
believe
going
it.
to do this big thing to try and take over.
But you
Tony
know
Stark.
he's a dick from the start. Like, from the first scene, you know he's a competitor. So, like, you already know straight away that he's going to be a villain.
I can't believe that we're talking about Iron Man 2 in the year of our Lord 2019. Shoutouts to Iron Man 2. Still love that movie.
They didn't bring Sam Rockwell back as Justin Hammer. They should bring him back. He's fun in that movie.
Yeah. Okay. Moving swiftly on from my guiltiest pleasure in Marvel. Other general points.
The rezzing of characters.
The what?
When you think someone's dead, and then 5 minutes down into the film, Deus Ex Machina, they're alive again.
Machina.
We're not getting into semantics of how to say words.
And Latin's a dead language. Say it however the fuck
Yes.
you like. They're not around to stop you.
But the Incredible Hulk, I know 2008 Incredible Hulk, you can take it as you want to, whether you want to include it in this MCU or not. When they threw the guy who's the Abomination against the wall, and he is so obviously dead, and then you get to the hospital and he's alive. When they make it, they love red herrings, and it's something that pisses me off in movies is red herrings, regardless of who it is.
Well, I believe that that's more of just a general action trope at this point.
Yeah.
Characters on a...
I hate action movies then.
So do you hate red herrings in even, like, mystery films, though?
There's
They
a
do that-
difference between a well done red herring and
Okay,
a red
are you
herring
talking
that's
about-
meant...
I think red herring's the wrong term. I think the term you're looking for is murder cockblock.
Sure.
Death fake out.
Yeah, death fake out, yeah. Excuse the language, that's the best one. Red herrings can just be clues that are false or misleading.
Yeah, that's the term I'm after. It was
Yeah.
when they make characters constantly appear like they're dead and then they're alive again.
The more a character appears that they're dead, or the more times they are faked out, the more immortal they are.
Yeah.
And, well, while there's one major exception to that coming up, well, we've already said spoilers. Iron Man's death in Endgame seems to be final.
Oh, we're gonna do it. Oh, okay.
We were doing it.
No one's going to watch this if they haven't seen Endgame.
You never know.
gonna be
You gotta be,
titled the
you gotta be
Endgame
careful.
The directors
I
officially
try not to
lifted the
piss
spoiler
anyone
ban.
off.
The directors have officially said
Alright.
that there is no spoiler ban in place. If they listen and they get spoiled, it's their own fault.
Alright. Yeah, Iron Man's dead.
Yeah, that was final, and they've done that well, but it's still in the past. There's been an inordinate amount of fake outs, and Infinity War being the master of all fake outs.
Yeah.
That while if you look at it in a meta sense of the 2-year gap, was it or just a year gap between Infinity War and Endgame?
1 year.
Yeah. If you experience that in real time, then the deaths of these characters may be felt permanent. I watched Infinity War for the first time the day before I watched Endgame, and boy did it feel like Infinity War left nothing with an impact. Are we just going to say that Infinity War starts now? Infinity War discussion starts now?
Yeah, we'll jump into Infinity War.
Yeah.
I also have to say, I read the
No?
comic books before I watched the movies, and one thing I have to say about MCU is they have managed to stick pretty well to the comic books. The problem with that is spoilers are a thing due to my own accord. Having read the books, I knew that they were coming back. Not the books, the comics. I knew they were coming back. Endgame was something that was already in the comics beforehand. How they did it was slightly different, but it was still something that was going to happen. So, while it's a good thing, it's also one of those things where you go, what's the point in making another reiteration of something in a different medium?
You could say that about any adaptation, though, basically.
When you've got to work from source material, if you don't work from the source material, that leads to backlash.
Yeah.
And now, apparently, you may as well just not adapt anything and everything has to be original, except nothing's original. Thanks, Jack, you've ruined everything.
Should we do an entire segment on Thanos and just discuss the rest of Infinity War before we dive into Thanos himself?
Well, do we want to do box office for Endgame first, quickly, and then talk about Infinity War Thanos leading into...
Well, box
Yeah.
office for Endgame's just going to be one massive jerk-off, isn't it? Because it's I mean, it's already grossing at a ridiculous rate, thanks China. And
2 billion bet Titanic.
well, yeah, most things are beating Titanic now, or at least
What? No.
Titanic's
No.
still third because Endgame just took it over.
God fucking damn it, Marvel. Yeah, Disney owns not only our wallets but our souls.
It's
Okay,
funny
so-
too because Disney owns Avatar now.
Yes.
So technically the highest grossing, because yeah.
So they've got
it's all a
crack-
Disney film.
Yeah, win-win for them by the way, really.
Yep, more money to Walt Disney's cold dead pocket. Anyway, so more talk on Infinity War. Like, what stood out to you about Infinity War, good or bad?
Well, I just jump on and go. Oh, I was just gonna say, I kind of love it. It's kind of a miracle, because it's because Jack, you read comics, right?
Mm.
Like the Avengers movies before this, they're just like crossover team ups. But Endgame is like the literal event
Infinity
comic.
Infinity War.
What the fuck did I say?
Endgame.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, I just lost all my nerd cred
We're not,
right there.
we're not going to interrupt each other anymore from this
Yeah.
point forward. Please and thank you, Internet.
Disclaimer: we're definitely gonna interrupt each other from this
We're
point
going
forward.
to try, and that's what really matters.
Okay.
Just ask the Avengers.
So, Infinity War is basically the idea of an event comic done on screen, and the fact that it works as well as it does is kind of a miracle in of itself, and kind of something worth it. No,
Well,
Kyle's shaking his head really
I
hard.
disagree with that. Like, it is by no... Aside from the fact that it's attempting an event comic, which is not that different to a comic book movie to me, at least in a layman who doesn't read as many comics as, say, my man Mark over here does, but it's...
That didn't sound forced at all.
Well, what were we saying about interruption? It doesn't, like, just because something hasn't, like, a subset of something hasn't been done on screen before, I don't think that makes it impressive. And it's not brave or defying or even genre defining when it's the culmination of probably the most successful franchise that has been since Bond.
Okay. Oh god. Yeah. Like I look at it like this. In terms of it, like not being brave, but it's sort of this movie. Infinity War totally could have been an incoherent mess.
Well,
And we've seen what incoherent mess superhero movies are like. And this movie has to juggle like 20 characters. And it has to... You're shaking your head,
No.
Jack. And you have to blend... Like... Because like the Guardians movies aren't exactly like every other movie. But they blend so well with Thor. Like that's like a clever way to do it. Get him in. And you've got like the magic side of the MCU with Doctor Strange meeting Tony Stark. And all the characters. And it's never jarring when they're on screen together. Sort of
that,
thing.
That is a point in its favour, but it's still, if the characters you've written in the same universe don't look right standing next to each other, then that's your own damn fault as part of the writing team. That's not some grand obstacle to overcome. You've literally written yourself into a corner. While I will agree that it's ambitious, so was The Shape of Water's fish fucking. Like, it's not special to be ambitious, and it's not special to be ambitious in such a small way. It's by no means an experimental film or anything out of the grain other than the biggest, baddest Marvel movie to come out.
The one thing that you do have to take towards Marvel's credit, however, is the fact that they're able to explain magic through science and say that the two things are interconnected. Because they do quite often that they say science is a form of
I
magic.
say that in the first
Yeah.
Thor movie.
And whenever there is... They don't say, "Ooh, this magic is happening because we made it happen." They're like, there's a science behind it. And the science is something that has been taught and studied and such.
I think that, like, as the movies went on, the introduction of Asgard into the universe of sci-fi and how seamlessly it sort of moved over, that was clever. I enjoyed how that didn't feel jarring, but again, that was more Thor Ragnarok, more like Thor Ragnarok from our boy that isn't here. Be one of our friends to get why that reference works.
Please,
why it doesn't
please,
work.
we need more friends.
But, okay, Sorry, can we refocus? Are we still talking about Infinity War?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Other elements of it that stood out to me. Okay, I didn't watch Guardians Volume 2, shame upon me, but
It's a tearjerker.
Gamora's death. From the minute of Red Skull showing up and announcing the soul for a soul, it tries to be this shocking, grieving scene, but you immediately know that Thanos is going to throw that bitch in the pit. Like, it's they're not going to set it all up to stall now. The main surprise is that he loves her, but that's also a debatable matter since he loves her enough to throw her down a friggin' pit for a magic rock. So
I was gonna say we're getting into the way I like to look at it is love is such a malleable concept and idea that trying to like when I see a lot of people like they hate that scene because they're like, oh how dare you portray an abuser as actually loving their daughter, but it's like love is not like you can't get a straight definition of love with these set rules.
We're talking about the in-universe meta physical concept of love that says that you can trade Gamora's soul for this.
The thing is, though, you can compare that to when Star-Lord has his moment with Gamora where he shoots a bubble gun at her. But he is brought to literal tears of thinking about the thought of losing this person because of the amount of love he has for her, even though he made this promise to her that he would kill her. Like, you have to consider that although you can see it through Thanos as, oh, he's this terrible, terrible human being who killed his daughter, don't say that he's a good person or he did it for a reason. He did do it for a reason. And his reason was obviously a lot more than a promise that he made to Gamora. And I think in that way it's not honourable. Regardless, you should never throw your daughter into a pit and sacrifice her for a goddamn stone to
I love the
rule the
look
world.
on Carl's face.
However, you have to also consider in his mind what he's doing is a good thing, and he's sacrificing a single person for the greater good of everyone else.
On that, in his mind, it's a good thing, and I think that's what a lot of people forget when talking about that scene. Thanos thinks he's right, and just because he's wrong doesn't mean he's not bad in his head. He is the Mad Titan. He's not having fun. Well, sometimes he has fun, as his quotes would display.
We'll talk on that later.
And you can see in the acting, which is massive credit to Josh Brolin acting through the mocap suit. He is torn up about it, and like Kyle said, oh, you know she's going to die from the second Red Skull says, you've got to trade a soul for a soul, and yet, like, yes, it still poses the question, will he? You don't know that he will straight away, which you know he will, but you don't know he will, if that makes any sense. And so, yeah, yes, he loves her, but he's so determined and set on his path to get the stones and save the universe that he kills her anyway.
Well, that's the thing. While I have no doubt in the mind that the idea was Thanos was convinced this was the right thing to do, and whatever metaphysical explanation for loving the universe more is, the fact of the matter is I was totally unconvinced. I didn't find that scene compelling because while I got no doubt that what he thinks he was doing was noble, he was killing one person so he'd have the opportunity to kill half the universe again. Like, it's whether I'm not judging what he sees as right, I'm judging whether or not it's compelling, and I didn't find it compelling. I found it arduous, I found it annoying, I found it bullshit because I'm meant to care about Thanos' loss here when I care more about Gamora, and even if but I don't even care about Gamora that much. So there's even greater issue there.
I mean, you don't care about Gamora, but you haven't actually seen the Guardians movie, so it's kind of...
I've seen Guardians Vol 1, but again...
You can't remember it, though. I remember
Not
you saying.
particularly.
Yeah.
I'm out of the loop with Guardians, so there was a bit of issue there. But it was still the fact that the scene was on the majority of Thanos' grieving. There was the shock and pain in Gamora, but there was such a greater emphasis on how Thanos is grieving. I don't give a shit. I don't understand why people see him as at all sympathetic.
I was gonna say, I've never interpreted that scene as in, you're meant to feel bad for Thanos. I always took it as in you're meant to feel bad for Gamora because she got completely fucked over in this to the point that she tries to stab herself right before he throws her off. Like, I never interpreted it as a will he, won't he type thing. It was always oh god, no, he's gonna kill her, isn't he? That type of thing. And then you're like, oh god, please somehow get out of this. And then, like, yeah, she goes to kill herself and it doesn't work. And, like, it shows him, but, like, it makes the most sense to cut back to him. And I think it's a display of not that you're meant to mourn with him. It's just a display of the type of person he is, that he's done this horrible act, and yet he's going to cry over it like he's the victim here, type thing. And it's more of a scene that perpetuates how much of a monster he is. Because, you know, I love you, Gamora, but fuck you, because committing genocide is more important to me, type thing. And I remember, like, watching, like, reading something about it, and it's like how the whole Soul Stone thing is almost, like, contradictory, because if you truly loved someone, you wouldn't throw them off for power, type thing, right? It's a case of you need to be human enough to feel emotion, but also still enough of a monster that you'd still kill the one you love to get said power.
The thing as well with that is, in Thanos' eyes, Gamora betrayed him. Gamora became one of his enemies, but he still had inside him this love for her because he's his technically a stepdaughter, like an adopted daughter almost. But in his mind, she's a traitor. She's betrayed him, and she's trying to work against him. So although it is a sacrifice for him because he still has those feelings for her, those feelings are almost a wet blanket thrown over them because they're not the same as they once were when he first met this small, little, helpless girl who he's about to kill like half of her people's population as well. Like, it's not like he would have felt bad for that. So why should he feel?
Should we just move to the discussion of Thanos as a character? Because
All right,
this is
yep.
sort of where this is going instead of Infinity War. Okay. In a circle, just a few words, and then we'll get into more detail.
I want to start with me. Easily one of the best MCU villains. Probably one of my favorite villains in media in general. Not number one, but and freaking love Josh Brolin in the role. Like, the CGI is so good, and you get so much through so much of his performance as well. Still,
because Thanos has been around and portrayed since the very start, even as a very minor background character. Like a first glimpse, and all the way from that first glimpse, he's like portrayed as very cunning, even though, and like that's really the main. He's smart. He is good at what he does, even if what he does is running around genociding everyone he sees. And the fact that he has planned this out from the time in universe of the first Avengers film, and even before that, presumably, since his planet fell, he's been assembling his team.
assembling. Sorry, I had to do a knee slapper. Keep going.
So yeah, he's been assembling his team. He's been planning this out. He's been taking the steps to garner the Infinity Stones, and instead of just manually killing half of everyone he meets, just cheat and use the Infinity Stones. Snap away. So the very intelligence of the character is what stands out most to me.
I find him to be the most confused villain in this series since Ultron. Especially across the movie divide. I find him frustrating to the core because he was built up to be a huge hulking monster. Then they turn around and pretend that he's that he can be sympathetic or the protagonist of his own story, when clearly he hasn't been. And then they decide to double down on his villainy in Endgame. It just swaps between the two things. And while you can claim timey-wimey bullshit between the movies, 5 years doesn't change all that much for a creature that's, what, a few thousand years old at this point?
You can go first, and then I'll come back to respond to Kyle.
I find Thanos to be a character who his purpose is there, and his purpose is, to an outsider, is insane, but to him it's reasonable. He's killing half the population because there isn't enough resources for them. He was going to kill half of his own people, regardless of whether they were rich or poor, because there weren't enough resources to sustain them. And a lot of people do that argument of, why don't you just double the resources? But doubling resources don't work when, at the moment, humans are growing almost exponentially. So doubling resources doesn't help that, because we'll just wear them out again. And I'm sure it works the same as other planets, because eventually they're just going to wear out as well. So it's insane, and I don't agree with it in the slightest, but from his viewpoint, you can almost understand why he sees it that way.
It's more about whether or not you find him compelling. Do you find him compelling?
As a character, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, going back to you, Kyle, I'm going to debunk the whole sympathetic thing, because especially even like the directors of writers have said, he's not meant to be sympathetic, he's meant to be empathetic. And as I said in my Joker video, link in the description, shameless plug, they're not necessarily interchangeable terms, right? Empathetic is more so an understanding of why someone does something. Sympathetic is actually feeling emotion for them, right? Like the Joker is, at some times, empathetic but not sympathetic, because he's still a crazy psychotic clown who enjoys chaos. And as for the whole, like, they make him a monster in the other movies, and then they sort of make him, and they sort of then make him the main character in Infinity War. I think that's one of the reasons why Infinity War works, because by having him be the protagonist, it means you can have all these other heroes in the story, and it balances well, because all the actions revolve around him. He's the one driving the whole plot. And I think the fact, and I wholeheartedly believe with this reading that a lot of people have been saying, the whole point is, how he differs in Endgame, is that when you take away Thanos' point of view, you realize how, like, fucking batshit crazy he is, and how, like, horrible he is once you don't have his point of view. Like, Infinity War is, you're seeing this as from Thanos' perspective to get into his head, but then in Endgame you pull back and you realize, oh he is, he's just crazy, type thing.
Well, again, I've got to disagree with you, because there's a huge, huge discrepancy in the plan between Infinity War and Endgame. Infinity War, he's happy to step back once he's done the click, even after the fact that when he destroys the Infinity Stones, surprisingly enough, populations will return growth. So not only was that plan absolutely stupid as hell, not even getting into the logistics of it, the fact is the plan changes in Endgame. He claims that now he's going to destroy all life, full omnicide, so that people will praise him in his new galaxy, his new paradise. He doesn't love life anymore. He's not about the bizarre, like, humanitarian angle he was going for in Infinity War. Now it is simply him being worshipped as the benevolent deity he sees himself as. That is where the core of the confusion of the character comes from me. And I also refute the idea that he is empathetic. At no point in his alien mindset does it feel like he is someone that I can relate to. I can't relate to someone pushed to the point where they'd sacrifice a relative for a greater goal. The entire Marvel movies up until that point have used the antithesis of that, sacrificing everything for another loved one, which is the most human angle you have. But I don't find anything about Thanos empathetic. I don't understand, Amo, what you're talking about because not only he isn't the tortured monster even in his own mind, since he enjoys fighting the Hulk. He cripples the main dwarf and kills the rest of them. He has a blast choking out Loki. It isn't consistent.
So I had something else I was going to say, but I've completely blanked on that. I just want to say, earlier, I'm pretty sure you used sympathy and empathy wrong. The definition of sympathy is just feeling bad for someone and having no connection. Empathy is being able to relate and feeling bad because of that. I would really like to think no one here has empathy for Thanos because, I don't think any of you have gone around killing people willy-nilly.
I don't know, Jack's looking at me, buddy.
Thanos did nothing wrong.
Alright. I do remember the other thing I was going to say on what Kyle said about how it doesn't actually fix anything because populations still grow.
Didn't you have your stir fry car?
And that is on the levels. Alright, population. I would like to raise the counter thought. I don't think the populations would grow if the Avengers didn't go out and kill Thanos and no one knew that he got rid of the stones. Why would you go out and make your population grow if he's just going to kill half of you again? Why would you do that to yourself? That just puts yourself into I don't think it would happen if it was known what Thanos did and why he did it, and ostensibly he's probably prepared to do it again.
Okay, so here's the thing, Kyle. Thanos is fucking insane, and his plan makes no sense, and that's kind of the point. It's why no one ever really tries to argue with him. That's why Doctor Strange literally mocks him by saying, "Congratulations, you're a prophet," because he meets Thanos and he's like, "Oh god, this guy is so far gone." Like, what type of thing? Like I know people try to use Earth as an example to point out the logistics of everything, but it kind of falls apart because we don't understand the logistics of every other planet in the galaxy. So in some places maybe it would work, in some places maybe it would completely fuck it over entirely. Who knows? And that's the thing with Thanos is that he has this messiah complex where he's convinced. I said this prior to this. He is the Antichrist who's just deluded himself into thinking he's Christ, right? That's why he sort of he pretends to be sympathetic at times, but that's also why he has fun fighting the Hulk. Although I'm gonna counter on Loki's death. Loki was warned in the Avengers that if he fails, Thanos will kill him. So in a sense, it's just coming full circle where Thanos is just killing him for his prior failure type thing. I'm still going. Don't open your mouth yet. And I think that's kind of and that shows in Endgame then where he realizes they're literally going to try and undo everything. And now he's angry because the whole thing he sort of told himself, it's going to be good. It'll... grateful universe, blah blah blah. It doesn't happen. He wins, and it doesn't occur the way he wants it to, so he kind of finally snaps, and he's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make my own universe that's better, and all that. That just shows how far gone he is. That when he gets his victory, and sees that everyone is not going to accept it, he's just like, fine, if you won't let me be your god, then I'll just make my own universe instead type thing.
But again, you talk back to the feelings of wanting that sorry, confused there. You talk back to the feelings of seeing a man pushed to this far of a brink for his ideals, but the ideals collapse instantly, so you're left with a coward. You're left with someone who won't go through with their ideals, even when they were supposedly unfettered. They were willing to do anything for their ideals until the ideals betrayed them. It doesn't the character archetypes don't mix for me. You've got unfettered Thanos, the Thanos that's willing to do everything he can to save a universe that he thinks is dying out rapidly because or will destroy itself by breeding itself to death, which is metal as fuck. But then you've got a petulant child Thanos when a total of 7 Avengers stand up to him, and he decides that the universe must die for him so that he can have praise. There's also all the emotional moments with him where you see him at the best of his acting. Sorry, I forget the actor's name. I'm terrible.
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin. When you
Brolin.
Brolin. Okay.
Post your funny Josh Brolin mispronunciation in the comments,
Okay.
folks.
Alec Baldwin?
All
What?
one of you.
Okay. When Josh Brolin is at his best, crying or suffering or showing his pain, there are the moments where you've got Thanos the sympathetic, but then it just, there's no consistency. There's also Thanos the petulant child. There's Thanos' Frieza, Thanos' Maleficent. You've got and not the shitty new one. You've got a variety of characters that don't all fit as one entity.
So I think, so what you're saying is like his ideals, like quoting you, his ideals collapsed instantly. But I think you're not quite viewing it through the universe. You're almost viewing it as like the part 1, Infinity War and Endgame as the 5.5 hours there. It's just, that's all you see really of Thanos, when realistically that happens over, that's years and months and days of character development in universe. Between the time that Thanos snaps his fingers and when this is from the start of Endgame, so I guess I'll
Spoilers have been done. You can.
Yeah, we
the
kind of
whole
already
thing.
said it.
We
We already
already-
said Iron Man's dead, so...
Yeah.
Alright,
It's
so when they
Cat's
show
out of the
up
bag.
on his planet, it's been almost a month since he snapped his fingers. Like, that's a massive time scale that in universe happens within a matter of minutes. And I think you're almost viewing it as the matter of minutes, not the months and years that it actually is for him. And something I've been sitting on since talked about Thanos making his own universe. He's going to make his own universe with blackjack and hookers. Alright, I'm done. Mark, you can talk now.
Make the universe great again.
The joke is, fine then, I'll make my own universe with blackjack and hookers. You know what? Forget the universe. That's the full joke. Okay.
Well, see, I said it except without blowing out the audio levels.
What?
Oh, God damn it.
Alright, that's the last one for the night. Okay, as I was saying
I'm
though,
editing this.
see, yeah, no, this is going to be great. Kyle, with what you were saying, so with the ideals, first of all, he has to be crazy enough to have these insane ideals in the first place. And then imagine that you're crazy enough to believe in them in the first place, and then they completely collapse in on themselves when you find out, 7 heroes want to undo his actions so badly that they're going to literally, first of all, figure out time travel, build a time machine, travel back in time for a time heist, just to undo it all. Those are some pretty big extremes. This is the first time time travel has properly showed up in universe. And he finds out, holy shit, I win. And then literally, they're that desperate to undo everything I did. They're gonna fucking invent time travel. That's a pretty big, holy shit, is this what happens? They're not going to, because the whole thing is, he expects because he's that delusional, he expects the universe to at least accept it on some level. But they're not. They're literally inventing time travel to go back and undo his actions.
Well, but that's the thing. He's had people who have been ungrateful before. He's had Gamora, he's had Nebula, both of which have shown to betray him in at least small facets. If there was meant to be some big fuck-off moment, you don't understand what I'm doing, then it would be in the characters he's actually close to, not 7 people in a massive universe. In his shoes, I'd be more impressed at the ingenuity of it than the fact that they've gone back on his gift but where I'm at last point from my man Mark, and then we're done.
Okay. So first of all, Nebula is one of the people who goes back in time. So one of his daughters. And the second thing is, he is he is willing to do anything to get what he wants, right? But then you find out that once you do it, everyone is just gonna reverse it anyway. Like he realizes, okay, so even if I win, they're just still gonna undo it anyway, right? And if they can undo it once, doesn't that mean they can undo it again and again? And so the whole thing is now, oh shit, my original plan doesn't work because they're gonna just they're gonna fix everything or break everything, I guess, in Thanos' mind all over again. So it's like, I'll have to wreck this universe, then make a new one that's better type thing, because he's realized his plan that he's been so fixated on all his life, there's a flaw in it for the first time ever. It's, oh, they can go back and just undo everything. There's a reset button now. That type of thing. Jack, do you want to...
And there's almost a good moral in that story, because originally he was doing it
Genocide is bad.
No, but originally he was doing it by hand, and they can't reverse anything that wasn't done by the stones, unless they use the time stone to go all the way back. But the moment he uses the gauntlet to just snap everyone out of existence, they find a way to change that. It shows people that shortcuts don't work, and you need to do it properly. It's a... Look, it just came to my head then, but it's a good fucking moral.
If you want to do a genocide, then you gotta do it yourself.
You gotta do it right.
Wrong.
Until he took a shortcut.
I think really, though, they probably could have, but Tony specifically said he doesn't want to lose what he gained, as in his kid, mostly. Really, that's it, his kid.
He's a brick.
He just wants to keep his kid. And so that's why all he told Bruce to do, or Professor Hulk, if you want to use the correct name.
Gab.
We're
gonna talk about that.
I'm gonna dab you out of your chair. So he only tells Bruce to bring everyone back to now because he doesn't want to take them. He doesn't want to take the Avengers back to then. He brings just everyone forward 5 years, which
Are we still talking about Thanos? Or
No, we're segueing hard into Endgame because I'm making you segue hard into Endgame. And that also, I just want to say that would bring an interesting plot point for all the people in relationships where only one person's got snapped away, especially on the younger side of relationships, as in high school or even teenagers and stuff in relationships. When the other person comes back, they theoretically haven't aged where everyone else has aged 5 years. So you're gonna you've got a bit of a problem there where there's say they were 17 and now one's 17 and now one's 22, and it's
This is more fan fiction than Endgame reviews. Shall we move on to Endgame proper?
We're staying on Endgame now.
Okay. Wait, can I just say first off?
No. If it's about Thanos, no.
It's only Endgame.
No, yeah. There's a lot... with the whole everyone... So they snap everyone back into existence, but they haven't aged at all. There are so many implications there that are never going to get explored, unfortunately, because they could do a whole movie set in between Infinity War and Endgame, just exploring how normal people react to this.
But it's not going to be a blockbuster, and
I know.
It's
they
not
should
going to
do
be a big dumb action movie.
Maybe
you could do a series.
They should do a comic series, because comic sales are falling for everyone nowadays. Everyone's
Again, we're talking about fan fiction instead of the movie proper. Shall we talk about the movie proper?
Okay.
50 Shades of Grey.
What?
It was a fan fiction that became
Nobody cares.
best-selling books.
Nobody cares.
It's
Do you come to the Groovy Movie Man to jerk off?
I don't know about
really,
you.
really hope
I
not.
do.
That's why I've got my subscription bell
really
turned on.
hard.
That's why my subscription bell is turned on.
This is why kids shouldn't be listening to this.
Yeah, look, they were already lost interest 45 minutes ago. Let's get moving.
I'm really the one who gets to make that kind of joke. I already made a...
I have
put it in the
watched
comments,
zero
all
of your
two of you.
movies.
Videos.
Yes. Okay, so
Get it right.
Endgame proper. Beginning act.
Before we go, we want to go. I think before we go any,
We going? Wait, I'm I'm sorry.
No,
Beginning act. Or, when we say beginning act, do we mean the before the movie has started scene? Which is something that Marvel has just decided to pull out of their arse. Because they did that little scene with Hawkeye before the fucking logos even started running.
Did they?
Or, yeah.
yes.
Oh.
That Hawkeye thing happened before the actual movie had started. I thought it was a separate movie. I'm gonna be honest. I
You
thought they
forgot
were doing
Hawkeye
another
existed.
trailer. Or
So
beginning act.
I think even before beginning act, just to go around overall quickfire 2 sentences, what everyone thought of the movie as a whole before we go dive in. And if we're going to do acts 1, 2, and 3, we should define them before we start talking about them, not just say beginning.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So do you want to go in a circle and talk
Yep.
about?
Wait,
Just-
just quick fire general thoughts.
2
Okay.
sentences.
All right.
2 sentences, Mark.
Infinity War is a better movie as a movie. Endgame is a better emotional experience. Also, I cried twice. The second time I see it, I still cried both times.
Yes. Endgame is more about tying up loose ends rather than setting up the story like Infinity War was. And yeah, I cried all 3 times I went to see it.
We should do a how many times did you cry? With
Zero
yourself.
Shut up.
0 times. Endgame,
I'm kidding. Go.
Endgame is some of the best that Marvel has produced. It is not the most Marvel that it's been at, but it's still
Yeah.
been solid. It worked for what it was.
You skipped someone.
It was good, but it did need to go for 3 hours.
Yes, that's my big problem with Endgame was I feel like it was drawn out for way too long. I feel like that movie could have been done much quicker. However, I enjoyed it.
It was good.
And there we've got the first words out of our 5th member. Hey Jenna, what's up?
I just want to say on the whole time thing, I think 3 hours was definitely towing the line between length of movie and length of story. If you cut, there's not actually a heck of a lot you could cut out of the movie and still have everything that's there. I personally don't see any parts where there's filler. That might be different in your opinion. I don't think there's filler. But there's always something happening during the movie. And so 3 hours, yes, it's long, but it's not too long yet.
I agree with Zach. I'm thinking you could almost make it longer if you spent more time with before the time travel stuff kicks in. Like, I want like a whole movie of that. Like, we're never gonna get it. Like a whole movie of people just sitting down, depressed as hell, trying to move on with their lives, and like what the world was like during this 5-year gap where half of everyone just vanished. Because there's like some stuff that happens after the jump, and you're like, that would have been neat to see how that, like Professor Hulk, I think that would have been neat to see how that progressed into it. And that's what I mean by like, I could watch a 10-hour version of this movie where with just one ginormous first act of how's everyone doing 3 years after everyone vanished. Because we only sort of get that at the start, and it's good, and I wish there was more of
We'll
it.
talk about it later.
Yeah. Jack looks like he needs to
And
fucking piss.
This is my problem with the implementation of a Mary Sue character. Captain Marvel could have come in and finished that whole movie within an hour. If she had have actually done what she'd been asked to do and not fucked off to other planets doing whatever she wanted to do, she could have come in and finished that movie real quick. And you can argue that with me, but I can tell you you're wrong, because that's literally what happens in the final few minutes of the movie. She comes in and it's basically done when she enters. And that's my problem with Mary Sue's. If you can find a flaw in her, please let me know.
Wait, how does she fix the whole movie? The reason there's certain characters go back in the first place is that they go back to times where they roughly fit. If, like, how was Captain Marvel meant to walk through the military base? How was she just meant to, like, fly through New York and stuff without being spotted? Like, it sort of turns into that sort of thing. Yeah. I was
let's
dumb.
let's
but-
actually start dividing this up into acts so that we can properly have a solid timeline of this. We're dancing through the movie and bantering and talking shit. Okay, first up, and now the Hawkeye mini clip at the beginning. That was well done. It was poignant. It was short. I enjoyed it. Any contrasting views?
What was that?
Just with that, it's interesting to note that the character of Clint Barton isn't actually technically Hawkeye, as he's never referred. When he calls his daughter Hawkeye, that's the first time the words Hawkeye have ever been used in any MCU film.
That's more trivia than anything else.
I think
Yeah.
he's been credited as Hawkeye there. I'm not sure. I'll have to double
But
check.
I believe potentially, but he's never called
In
Hawkeye.
universe, yeah.
And yes, it's short and it shows. It's almost. I think the way they've put it before the opening logos actually is, well, logo singular. It's just the Marvel logo and then Endgame. It shows. Like almost, hey, it's almost like a recap at the start of a TV show. It's
hey,
like,
remember this
on the-
character exists?
well, it's not even that. It's like that perfectly edits into the end of Infinity War. If you could put Infinity War and as it is and directly sit down and watch Endgame and they go straight into each other. And that's, I think, why they've put it there. It shows this is still the exact same in the timeline.
I was going to say, I agree with you. Although, like, I remember reading this. The Russos originally did intend to have the Hawkeye thing at the end of Endgame, but then they decided not to because they felt like it was weird if all of a sudden you, like, all this stuff is happening, and then at the end you're like, oh yeah, Hawkeye, he's in this type thing. Like, it'd be a bit weird.
Okay, so let's move on to what we'll loosely call first act-ish. I'm gonna set this as defined between about when they... Okay, actually, let's talk setup. Let's talk the 5-year period, the short little window that we get into the world after the snap.
The first thing that we get is Tony Stark in the ship. And then, guess who comes along and saves the day? Captain Marvel. Deus Ex Machina. How does she know where they are?
That is something that I have seen discussed quite a lot online. The most prevailing theory is Rocket has told him, hey, they probably went to Titan. Do you want to head out in that direction and look?
But the fact that we have to theorize about that is trouble enough. That itself could have probably been hand-waved and pretended not to be an emotional moment. You could have just, like, it would have been mildly frustrating, but the entire point of building up the tension of, oh no, they might die out there, just to bring in Captain Marvel. Aside from maybe establishing the relationship Captain Marvel has between the rest of the Avengers and how powerful she is, that was probably where I designate filler. I don't think there was anything really of value in not just letting them get home safely in that rocket. There was no real difference other than bringing Captain Marvel to Earth, which she should have come anyway, considering Thanos.
She was actually already on Earth because you haven't seen Captain Marvel because she shows up in the mid-credit scene of that on Earth where they've got the pager that Fury had at the end of Infinity War.
Yeah.
And then Black Widow does the turnaround and Captain Marvel's there and she's like, where's Fury? So yeah, so like the whole...
Yeah,
so she has been on Earth already.
So,
She's already
yeah,
there.
That scene was... That... In retrospect, yeah, that's filler. It's maybe a little bit tender, but you never call back to the... Oh, it's the second day on this ship, we're running out of oxygen. No, it's Captain Marvel. That was silly. But let's move on. The rest of the 5 years. Let's talk... atmosphere.
Wait, just one more thing quickly.
Yeah.
The reason I can't accept... Like, I'm kind of going to hate the term Mary Sue at this point because the internet has... It's a dead horse that the
Device.
internet has
Yes,
beaten
fine.
it to death. The thing is, though, like, she's not really Mary Sue because she's barely in the fucking movie. Like, the plot doesn't mystically start forcing
Okay,
itself
yeah.
to revolve around her. She's in it for 10 minutes.
But the question is, why isn't she? In this regard, I'm just going to say that the opening scene with Iron Man in the spaceship, pretty much pointless. Aside from a bit of humanization with Nebula, the stranding them in outer space was irrelevant. So, shall we move on to Earth after the snap?
Okay.
I loved the effect of it. Ant-Man showing up and just this... There really was, for the first time in a Marvel movie, a real condensed sense of misery. You've had tyranny in Thor Ragnarok with big fat air quotes, where they're just sort of running around and hiding, and it's meant to be tense, but then you swap back to Sakaar. Here you've got a real sense of loss, even if the movie reverses it fully in the end. There's a change in the air as things go round. This is not fun anymore. It's crap sack.
Even that kid on the bicycle, when he says what happened, it's clear that there's been a big effect on people. Because this kid who was just minding her business, having a good old time on his bike, is brought to tears when this guy asks him,
Just
what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, reminds him of what this event was.
I think directly following that scene when Scott finds the monument to the Banished, as the monument says, I think that scene and then the juxtaposition, not quite, but almost, of compared to the support group that Captain America is running, of the two sides of like people who, like the kid on the bike is someone who hasn't really moved on. There's the people in the support group with Captain America who are trying and working together to move on, and then there's the people who are just like visiting the monument who almost have moved on. And I think that shows the three ways that... I think that's very, very human in showing those different reactions. That's how, if that happened for real, how it would play out. There would be people who don't move on, and there are the people who do move on. And because of the fact that it's a random 50%, I think some people will... There's very much a chance, if that did happen, that some whole communities would be left completely intact. There will be people who have had none of their friends get dusted, none of their family get dusted, and there are going to be people who lose absolutely everything.
Anything more to say about that time, that half the world disappeared?
There's I definitely like it. I've heard some people say that it's like the boring part. I don't think so. You need to feel the impact first. It needs to feel hopeless before it's like, all right, we got to fix everything. Otherwise, the whole we got to fix everything doesn't have that punch that it needs to. Although they were like, and again, as I was saying before, like I could watch a trilogy of people just dealing with their lives in between then, because I would have loved to sort of see the transition from Hulk to Professor Hulk type thing. It's like, it's funny, and this is probably like the second best use of Hulk in a movie after the first Avengers. Probably the second best Ruffalo performance as the Hulk since the Avengers. Nothing's ever managed to top the scene of Bruce Banner admitting he tried to shoot himself, but I think no, Jack's looking at me like, what? In the first Avengers, in the argument scene, there's a part where Nick Fury's like, can you please escort Dr. Banner? He's like, well, how? You rented my room. It was just in case we needed a way to kill me. I know. You can't. I tried. There's a big pause, and he's like...
We're still talking about Endgame?
That's word for word too.
Yeah, wait, just quickly, I'll finish it. I got low. I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth, and the other guy spit it out. So I moved on. I focused on helping people. I was good. So you dragged me back into this...
One day Broadway.
You just said my real name. I have to cut that now.
Fuck off, Mark.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, he admits
I said it
in
like
the Avengers.
3 times before, it's fine.
Fucking see now, I've got to censor all that now.
You have to listen to the whole thing anyway.
Still.
You have to also cut that part where we had a bit of an interruption because I forgot to clean the dishes.
I'm leaving that in.
Melvin, or whoever the hell you are.
Melvin?
That's your name.
He just made a Yu-Gi-Oh reference.
Oh, what?
This is just going to be one long beep.
Okay, so, after the emptiness scene, if I was to talk about a boring point, Black Widow's reaction was nice. up until the point where they got the gang back together all in that room and then just decided to go off and hunt Thanos. That part was... from an instant sense that it's not going to be permanent even if they do succeed. There's no way in hell that it'll mean anything this far into the movie. And to an extent, that's kind of the point, but it also feels really empty. I'm not sure if that was intentional. It was the victory over Thanos, but it was short, it was mislived. It felt pointless. But it was shot colourfully. It was shot with all these grand emotional moments, like it matters still. But it didn't matter.
Well, on that, I think the whole point of that is they think they have a shot. They don't know the stones are gone. They just know that's where Thanos is. If they can get him and get the stones, they can reverse what he did. And when they get there and they find out that those stones are gone, and the way they respond to that, I think is the whole point of that whole segment. And you see the range of character reactions with Banner, like yelling at him, screaming, "You murdered trillions," and then Thor responding by just chopping his head off. That's shows the way they would react in that situation. And I think also on the whole desolation, I think if they had have redone some of those sections to also include like familiar locations across the whole universe of other planets going through the same thing, as opposed to just a throwaway line from Captain Marvel, what the things that are happening on Earth are happening everywhere else. So I think that could have been, instead of entirely focusing on Earth, if I was going to change anything about that part...
We're talking about fan fiction again. Let's move on.
You asked my opinions, that's my opinion. If I could change something, that's what I would change. Apart from that, it's done really well.
I was going to say, the only thing is, though, the only, other planet we care about in the MCU is, Xandar, and that already got apparently decimated prior off-screen in Infinity War. So I think it'd be odd if you suddenly sort of cut to it in Infinity War, and it's we're going to cut to one planet that we know. Because otherwise you don't really give a shit about any other planets. They haven't really established any as other than just sort of brief settings type thing, which I think is why they didn't do that.
Okay, so the other thing is the characterization of the characters after the 5-year skip. We've talked about Banner, Armor, but in a way I enjoyed watching from the spaceship Tony recovering to the Armor, and the Armor, his giving up and slowly building himself back up with his new family. That was cleverly done. I really loved the mania, and I even loved a bit of the meta in Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark yelling at Captain Marvel, "Oh, you're the new blood. We need some new blood around here." It felt fitting. It felt right, because I kind of have a bit of the same tiredness regarding the Marvel franchise and how sprawling it's become. It's this sense of... It's again that compounded sense of tiredness, of anger, of frustration, and loss. But, okay, the middle ground. Does anyone else have anything about the first confrontation with successful Thanos?
Well, I actually had speaking about filler and the lovely thing that it is, that 5 years later transition went for way too long. That was 30 seconds dedicated to text.
Jack was counting. He got out his watch.
I think that's... But it's almost the point. You see the 5 and it's
oh shit.
Oh, okay. And then it's years later, and that helps you feel that
it goes.
Making it... If it was just 5 years later for half a second and then cut away, you don't feel the impact of it being 5 years later. Yes, maybe a little too long, but...
5 years later.
I think it could have gone 5 years later. But it's got to have some length to it to have the impact that I think is the intention of making it drawn out.
Mark?
No, I was going to say, yeah, I agree with Zach. They probably could have done it 5 years later, but that even when you say it out loud, it
This
sounds
is the
a
most
bit off.
bullshit I've done yet.
This is as nitpicky as we're gonna get.
Okay.
Or maybe
so
not until we start talking about time
Does
travel
anyone
physics.
have anything else against the Thanos scene or anything else? Because it works for what it is. It's empty. It's hollow. It's frustrating and not always to its benefit. But okay, so shall we start talking about the actual 5 years sorry. Shall we start talking about the beginning of the time travel sequences?
Have we got our times messed up? Because I'm pretty sure that Thor is still a babe when they kill Thanos.
Yes.
Yes.
That happens
So
before
that happens
at the
before
end.
credits, yeah.
Thor chops his head off, walks out the
And
door,
it
and
goes
then
to the
as he
5 years
walks out,
later.
he
Yes.
goes
We did have our
blurry
time
and goes
messed up.
blank.
I was sitting here going, I'm pretty sure this is not the
No,
sequence.
we kind of
we're talking
we
about
ended
the-
up talking about both of them
Yeah.
anyway. Still,
We're talking about that whole big block,
Yeah.
and we're not talking about it in order. And alright, so yes, next block. So Ant-Man / Scott Lang showed up, and we're talking all about the crazy wonders of quantum physics and time travel. Let's go.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay.
Sure.
I like it up until the end where the movie decides, and I'm still fine with it because it's a good emotional beat. But I like how this movie decides it wants to actually set out time travel rules. And then it goes the whole movie and then it fucks it at the end when Captain America shows up on the seat. It was good until then. You
So,
look confused. Do people want to say?
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about that? How does it fuck it?
Okay, so you know when the Ancient One, she does the whole thing and she explains it. So the whole idea is, and they say you can't change your own past. Any change you make creates a branch timeline from that change. So when Cap goes back, even if he does stay with Peggy, that's its own timeline now. So he can't show up unless the implication there is the timeline we've been watching all these years is in itself a branch timeline, and the Cap we meet is from the original timeline, and this is the altered timeline
And
that
why
he's
does
stating.
everything smell like burnt toast? Is our brain
So-
fuck, because fucking time travel.
This is the insert the Austin Powers scene where he goes, "Good God, I've gone cross-eyed."
but if you were also talking about those rules, just removing an Infinity Stone is what creates the branch realities. Not changing the past creates branch realities. That's what she said.
Infinity Stones are like basic.
Infinity Stones.
See, I think that's another small contradiction though, because otherwise the timeline is completely fucked still, because Loki escaped in 2012 with the Tesseract, and that would have huge implications. Like, it's missing from that era then. That changes Thor the Dark World because Loki isn't in that movie anymore.
But the idea is then the Tesseract is gone in the first place, and Loki fucked off to an alternate timeline. In which case, well, shit, we fucked up, but at least we can make the main one better, or kind of. It's weird. But okay, moving on. The time travel, building the time travel, and up to the first set of jumps into that.
I have a question, because I don't understand quantum physics that much.
No one does.
What does an inverse Mobius strip have to do with anything?
Bullshit movie science.
Technobat.
Bullshit
that's-
movie
yeah.
science is the answer.
Okay. So I actually did sit physics, and we did briefly cover quantum physics.
Got a physics boy here.
And I have done my own research into quantum physics. I got real bored in some classes. And please don't touch me again, or I will quantum realm you. I know how. I've studied quantum physics.
Okay, shut the fuck up. Let's move on.
So yeah, a lot of it's there's the basis in science is a whole bunch of theories. We don't actually know what is smaller than atoms because we're too big to know what's smaller than atoms. It's
Protons,
This-
neutrons, electrons, quarks, leptons, neutrinos. Let's not talk bullshit quantum physics.
Yes,
Let's
it's-
talk about these as plot devices.
it's all, as far as the actual science goes, it's all bullshit quantum theories. Yes, people have actually theorized the stuff that they talk about, those things, but again,
as plot devices.
they're as a plot device. I think they work incredibly well, and the way they set them up is done as properly as you can with something as bullshit as time travel.
This is kind of going back to what I said, Jack. It has to be any change you make creates a branch timeline though, because otherwise the whole part where they're like, hey, can't we just go back and kill baby Thanos? That means they could, in theory. So so even though it's worded like that, I always got the impression that it was, no, anything you change is just going to create a timeline. And if you do something... Yeah, but not in your timeline.
Yeah.
Right. Because otherwise, why don't they just go back and kill Thanos?
Yeah.
If that's really, like... It's not quite how that works, because otherwise when Nebula shot Nebula would have fizzled out of existence. Changing the past does nothing to affect anything else apart from that very instance. Otherwise, everything would have gone skew if when they took the stones, the snap would have been undone. That's not how it works.
The logistic... We could keep...
Got my finger up! You're gonna let me talk! That was the rules we set!
I am putting a censor upon this.
Oh.
I'm putting a censor upon this because we are going round and round, and this isn't relevant to the plot. We can argue until blue in the face about why we're confused about bullshit movie time travel later. Shall we move on to each of the scenes in the past where and why they work, if they work at all?
It's a bit, like, I still enjoy them. They're a bit, maybe like a tiny bit pandering at some points. I think some of them go, like some of them I liked more. Like I like, hey, it's the ancient one. She's back. And it's nice because you've only seen her once. But like when you stay in the Avengers, the end of the Avengers movie, it's like, look, we know how great the Avengers is. There was a long finale type thing. Like there are small things I like here and there, like the Hail Hydra reference, which is a comic book reference. Jack just did a Nazi salute.
No, I didn't.
He did the Hydra salute. Hydra is two arms.
Do you not remember Captain America, the first Avenger?
And the Winter Soldier.
And the Winter Soldier.
I don't think they saluted in the second one though.
I don't think
They did in the first Avenger.
They definitely did in the first one. I don't think in the second
Anyway.
one. Oh, see, he interrupted me. Look what happened. What was I saying now?
Can I talk?
Yeah, just talk. I forgot what I said.
I was saying also that when I first watched that, when I first watched the film, that the scene where he gets into the elevator is also, it's definitely a callback to the Winter Soldier when he's in the elevator with all of them. And I 100% thought the first thing he was going to say before we start is, does anyone want to get out? And he doesn't. And so I think that was
a good reference.
That was really well done. And yes, there is some sections where I think some of the part pandering to fans, hey, we have old movies. Remember the old movies we did? Some of it gets a little bit too much, but again, on the scene on Morag, where it shows the different perspective of the opening of Guardians 1, I think that one was very, very well done.
Yeah.
And showing the outside shot of Peter Quill without the sound playing as he just screams the lyrics. And that's something that does, like, that's what somebody looks like singing with headphones on. And it shows, it's like, he's an idiot. He's an idiot.
Yeah.
So, that's, like, where it's done well.
Yeah.
But overall, I think they're fairly consistent with some better, some worse.
Yeah. I don't think, like, even in some of the parts, I wouldn't say it's, like, bad or whatever gets too much. I think for what this movie is, where it's meant to be the end, it's a time where you can get away with it. Like, where a whole middle act is basically just fan service. And, like, some parts are better than the others. Yeah, the whole Morag scene, that's hilarious every time. That's great. You okay, Jack? You look a little...
I agree.
Okay, that type of thing.
My issue calls back to, because I'm the only man who actually remembers enjoying Iron Man 2, the sort of Tony meeting his father, and that extended sort of talk on parenthood was nice, but like it did feel a little bit over the top in places, because the I've always actually loved you, son, was sort of the Iron Man 2 bent. So towards the end, where it's all like, oh, I'm giving it all up for my son, this is all the things that matter, that just felt like retreading old ground in more ways than one, because, you know, time travel.
What the fuck is Howard Stark meant to look like?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's in like 3 movies.
Okay, he looks arguably the same with different variations of age. So that is a much younger Howard Stark than the other older Howard Stark with like more grey and white hair. So I think he's kept actually quite consistent by showing him at different stages of age.
Captain America, the first Avenger.
No, yeah.
That's
Wait.
much younger with his wacky hair because, yeah.
I was gonna say that's the only time though the actor is different. Every other time they've used this version, like in the flashbacks in Civil War, they used that version. The same one in Iron Man 2, it's that version. It's only in there because he's meant to be a lot younger, and their de-aging effects weren't as good at that time.
Yeah.
But now they can do it.
I was gonna say
Young Hank Pym, Michael Douglas.
He was he's like young genius who's like just starting to work for Shield, and he's one of the first things he does is making Captain America, as opposed to when he's older and now he's Shield's fully operational in their secret underground bunker, which I must say pissed me off so much when Tony used X-rays to look through solid concrete and steel. X-rays do not go through solid concrete and steel. That pissed me off. Infrared doesn't go through. It says X-ray infrared in the top of the screen, and neither of those things go through concrete and steel.
Let's not talk about physics in a movie about time travel.
I was just gonna say back to Kyle, like how some of it feels a bit retready of Iron Man 2. I think it's fine, if only because Iron Man 2 was literally so long ago. Like that's phase 1 we're talking now, and as well because like one of the parts that stood out so much for me in Civil War is the first scene with Tony, where he's got the device and he recreates the last time he saw his parents, except this time he tells his father that he loves him. So I think it kind of works in the sense that Tony gets to physically be with his father in this moment and almost sort of... Relish isn't the right word, but you know what I mean? So it's kind of almost fine that he gets to say it to him again.
Yeah.
This time literally in the flesh.
Yeah. It was mega closure on a long gone dad. Now, my other one that I'm sure will be divided on is Black Widow and Hawkeye's that soul scene. Competitive suicide was the theme of it, and it felt overblown with the double, triple fake outs of who's going to die. Like it, you can say that it has people guessing, but at the point is I wanted an answer about 2 minutes before the scene properly ended. Like, I didn't want to guess anymore. The suspense was wasted, and I was like, get on with it! What if you die already?
I have this big problem where whenever I'm watching a movie and someone makes a sacrifice, like this big life sacrifice that can change the complete tides of the story, I will cry. I will be in tears. This scene made me angry. I was not crying when these people decided that they were going to kill themselves for the greater good. I was pissed off because of how bullshit it was. It was like, one of you just do it. Just finish it. Right now. Stop arguing over it and die. I was angry. I was pissed.
On that, neither of them, the whole point, so I think it's like the same thing with the 5 years later. It's done for a certain effect. It doesn't need to be done for that effect for that long. They're fighting over it because they are like the best of friends, like bestest friends ever. And would you say just, no, fucking best friend, kill yourself. I'm done. I'm sick of this shit. Just kill yourself.
Of course, it's not
just fucking kill yourself.
It's not realistic, but that doesn't mean that it's a good scene.
It's like, no, fuck you. You can die. I'm gonna die so you don't have to die, and then I'm gonna die. No, I'm gonna die so you don't have to die. No, I'm gonna die so you don't have to die. And yes, it was drawn out a little, but I think
this conversation.
Maybe if you cut out one of the fake outs in the middle of it, but I think leaving it at the last where Natasha kicks herself off and rips herself out of Clint's grasp as he's stuck to the cliff, I think that is well done.
That's an emotional scene. However, I was already pissed because of how long it took that I did not feel those emotions.
It's funny because I've heard people say that that scene is too short and it doesn't go long enough. Funnily enough,
those people are neo-Nazis.
Those people.
Oh, okay then.
They're not gonna do
that. Now Jack's the shield.
Deserve death. Whoever thinks that scene should be longer deserves to be genocided.
We had full foreshadowing with the two of them going off to go and do the scene. So Like, we knew what was going to happen before, if you paid any attention during Infinity War to that long drawn out Gamora scene. So, whether or not it would happen, we already knew it would happen, and one of them would die. The question was who, and not even the writers seemed to know until finally one of them got hit off the cliff.
I kind of think, though, you said, like, not realistic, but if you want the emotion to be there, it can't be just like, yep, dying, fall off, despite what Jack thinks, I guess. I hope no one's ever holding a gun to my head, and they're like, tell me something, Jack, and Jack's gonna respond with, pull the trigger.
Well, that's the
That
thing.
type of thing, but, like...
A death scene in a movie can be tragic, if not realistic. Like, a lot of the time, death is a long, drawn-out process of just, like, slowly sobbing your way into the longest sleep. That doesn't mean that it's a good movie. It doesn't mean it's a good scene. It doesn't mean that it's effective.
Well, like, the way I see it is, though, it's not going to impact if you don't have them discuss it and then argue over it. Like, the whole thing is, they both think they're the one who needs to die, Natasha, because she's been trying to, like, redeem herself and get the red out of her ledger, and Hawkeye because he's kind of, like, become a monster by this point in those 5 years. And they're besties, so of course they're going to, like, no, I'm not letting you kill yourself. It's also a nice contrast to the drawn-out scene where Thanos kills Gamora, because, you know, that's a bit long as well, even though you know he's pretty much going to do it. And I think it's like a good contrast because they fight over it.
I think something that's very important to remember when discussing the scene, we know someone has to die for them to get the Soul Stone. No one who is currently alive that's going to get the stones does. The only person who knew that a sacrifice had to be made was Thanos, because he went there and he found out from Red Skull that somebody has to die in order to get the Soul Stone, and the only other person who was there is Gamora, and she's dead. So yes, that's where it comes from. We know, but they don't. And you can't skip over their reaction to finding that out because we already know it.
But the same token is there. The emotional resonance of them finding it out isn't going to be as hard as the emotional resonance between Thanos and Gamora if you buy into it. You can't play the same shock reveal twice and have it feel effective for the audience. They can react differently, and they definitely did, but I still didn't find it compelling, and I'm going to call that to the point of opinion, so that we'll stop arguing over the very semantics of whether or not it's objectively sad or not.
I was going to say everything here is an opinion. I don't want to have to bring this whole thing back. Not to say there aren't objective qualities in films, but it pisses me off when people start using... This is mini tangent, when people start using objective as basically just a quick way of saying automatically I'm right, you're wrong, everything.
It's the new literally.
Basically. Well, 9 out of 10 times people say it nowadays, it's just a quick way out of actually having to explain anything.
Let's heckle the youth later. Okay, so is there any other parts in discovering the stones that we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about Nebula, or...?
I think the whole concept of the two nebulas being networked, and which allows Thanos to find out they're going for the stones, is a very interesting concept as a way to bring Thanos back into the story. I quite liked how that was done. However, it was, especially watching it for the third time, after she grabs the orb out and gives Rhodey the Power Stone, it's like, if they just shut up and stop talking about how they're both half machine and just sync up and disappear, Thanos is gone. Thanos doesn't show up because Nebula doesn't go all... And also, there's also plenty of opportunity for Nebula to just smack her inverted Mobius strip and disappear as she's lying on the ground before they got there, which is kind of annoying.
I was going to say, I agree to that criticism to some extent. She could leave, although at first she doesn't leave because she assumes he's going to go after Clint and Nat, who don't know about him, and they're in danger if he does. Rhodey's already gone with the Power Stone, so that stone's safe. like she should a bit later on, like when she first gets captured, because she doesn't get it taken off her straight away. Also, I like with the whole, like the past Thanos sort of becomes the villain of the movie because it ties into that whole I am inevitable thing, which I liked. And I also like this kind of goes into later though, how like past Nebula kind of becomes like a physical manifestation of like Nebula's old want to impress Thanos at all costs. Like even at the end, I'm skipping a bit, where she's like, where they say she can change and she's like, he won't let me, and then she goes to shoot Gamora, and that's like Nebula finally killing any part of her that wanted to still be the daughter of Thanos type of thing. Good arc.
That's a good metaphor for that.
Do we have anything else on this act or?
No.
Okay, so shall we talk about Thanos being reintroduced fully and any other implications surrounding that before we get into the full big final battle and reversal of the snip?
Snip?
Snip.
I think Kyle has other things on his mind.
I
Which
think,
I might have.
like I said earlier, the reintroduction of Thanos, because if they didn't bring Thanos back, there's no rest of the movie. Banner snaps his fingers, everyone comes back, and whoop-de-doo.
You did it.
You did it. Roll credits. So I think it was very important that he comes back to finish off his arc almost, because he's not really done when he dies for the first time. And so him coming back was very important to keep the story moving, otherwise you wouldn't have a story at all. So he needed to be there. And the way they brought him back was very well done. And I think also the reveal of them finding out that the snap did bring everyone back was well done on the two ways they find out. Scott seeing all the birds, because he did kill half of all life, which ostensibly includes all animals.
Yeah.
And
Not all plants, though. I would
no,
like to have
he
seen-
didn't kill the plants, which is kind of weird.
I
but
kind of would have loved to have seen like half devastated landscapes, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing that would have been hitting the CGI budget like.
yes.
They need that for
Like a Hulk
Thanos.
Like a Hulk dab. So yeah, but
Oh, we haven't talked
Scott
about that.
finds out by
We don't need to.
we don't need to at all. So Scott finds out by seeing the birds come back, and he figures it out. And then Clint finds out by getting a call from his wife, which is fair enough. She goes all dusty, and then she pops back into existence, and her husband is gone. What do? You call him.
Yeah,
Duh.
these hot dogs have been cooking for 5 years. They're pretty fucking burnt.
Are the hot dogs living creatures? Did they get snapped out of existence?
I'm
Dusty
pretty sure hot
soup?
dogs aren't related to any kind of living animal. anymore.
Anyway, so yes, so the two ways of them finding out it comes back, and then Hulk sort of coming back to consciousness, realizing he did it, and then realizing there's a missile pointed at his face, and the oh shit moment. I think it didn't get, they didn't. Yeah, I think they did that well as the fact that they glossed over anyone coming back on screen. I think was also very good. I think that was the best decision they could have made instead of showing people popping back into existence.
This is kind of like a minor thing that I just thought of. That like a few like plot contrivances for the story, but like it's time travel anyway, not time travel physics. But you know the part where they screw up in 2012 and they're like, oh god, what are we gonna do? We'll go back to this time where there were more Pym particles. It's like, wait, why didn't you just use all your current Pym particles, get more Pym particles, then come back, and then you have like a stash where you can afford to make mistakes and stuff. And also, why did they so they use like an Iron Man glove he makes at the end, right, as the new gauntlet, right? But it doesn't work because the moment you put it on, it's already starting to like half kill you. Like, why didn't they just go, like, unless Eitri got snapped as well, they don't say, why didn't they just go back to the forge, get him to make a new one? So at least when you put it on,
The
you're not
gauntlet
going-
affected Thanos as well when he put it on.
Yeah,
but not,
was-
it wasn't burning him though until he snapped his fingers.
Yes.
Whereas when they
That
put
would-
it on,
no.
it's killing them already.
No, there was also the fact that he.
If we're not talking about Hulk dabs, are we also going to avoid the fact that these filmmakers think that Fortnite is still going to be a popular thing in 2023?
No, that's
or
how you know
2024?
that's how you know how shit everything is.
This-
By that time, that Fortnite is still a thing.
The
If-
entirety of Riot Games went under.
Ostensibly, half of all game developers got dusty as well. So, if there's no one to do anything, why would... It's a distraction, and it's the distraction we have, and no one's manufacturing anything. So why not still play what's popular now?
this is more bullshit semantics.
It just bothered me.
Also, I think it might be product placement because they have Thanos and Fortnite, don't they?
Yes.
As like in a thing.
Yeah.
So
Yes. So
although
it's probably
yeah.
in the sponsorship deal.
It's an event.
yeah.
Um,
One more thing quickly. I love Korg showing back up in this. That joke over the headset. That is fucking great. That's one of the best jokes in the
New
movie.
Master 69
Yeah.
is the new the Legend 27 confirmed.
People found his account. It turns out that like it's a real account. New Master 69 is a real Fortnite account, and people like he had like 9 wins or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was reading it in trivia.
Ah, yes. So, yeah, Korg coming back almost as like a cameo role, I think, was all we needed of Korg. Because Korg is a funny character. He's a very light character, and he doesn't fit with the overall tone of the movie, which is a lot more dour. So I think him only being there for a little bit is suited.
That's more middle act stuff. Let's talk the end game of Endgame so that we can end this fucking slog. I hope you guys have been taking frequent water and toilet breaks. Because,
I know I have.
Yeah. That's some movie magic.
No, yeah, there was a
ladies and
part
gentlemen.
where I was
Okay.
talking and no one was actually in the room. And I just had to keep, except for Zach, so I had to keep pretending as if you were all still here. I responded to some of your points, but you didn't hear any of it.
Okay,
Anyway.
So, shall we just start talking about the final battle in its various stages?
Yes.
Yep.
Let's see. Thanos choosing to just sit down with the helmet on the ground. I didn't.
He had it on the blade thing.
Yeah. It was really the arc of complete villainous hubris. It's at this point, oh, I don't care anymore. Do it for me, peasant. Instead of, oh, this is a task that only I can carry. Yada yada, whatever. It wasn't out of character because past Thanos is now a different character almost, but still, whatever.
So with that, you're talking about past Thanos. Thanos at that point was still getting other people to look for the Infinity Stones for him. He's not at the final do-it-myself stage that he was in Infinity War. He's still in the get everyone else to collect the stones for me, and it's all the stones have been collected for him. He just needs Nebula to wander on down, pick up the glove, and handball it to him.
I was going to say, adding on like, there's a specific moment at the end of Age of Ultron where Thanos is finally fed up and he's like, fine, I'll do it myself. That hasn't happened yet for this Thanos because, like, the big one that failed was Ronan. That hasn't happened yet because this is the start of Guardians, where he comes from. So he hasn't gone to that point where he's like, fuck it, I'll do it myself. And also, even then, though, in Infinity War, he still gets some of his specific, like, most loyal children to do some of it anyway. So I don't think it's that insane that he sends Nebula to get the gauntlet.
Okay, but let's see. Big Dumb Battle Act 1. The armor.
3 or 1? Like, what are we talking about?
No. Because the Big Dumb Battle
part-
Act
That's like part 1.
Oh, we're splitting into 3 acts, okay.
Yeah, because, okay, so Thor and Captain America and Iron Man versus,
Thanos.
yeah, that was effective. It was really kinetic. There was a heavy sense of impact, as well as I was actually pretty close to the same level of, or like the closest I'd been to the same level of giddy that I was as seeing the Avengers all team up and fight. Not because it was a big team up, but because of just the general things, like the little Thor wielding both Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, Steve wielding Mjolnir, all the armor, all these little details, and against just a really well planned and interesting fight, 3-on-1.
Just a small tidbit, I still consider the Titan fight to be the best fight between these two movies. I don't think anything tops the Titan battle. I think it's from Infinity War. I think,
But we're talking about Endgame.
and I'm just saying, I still think the Titan battle's the best.
And that detail of Steve being able to wield Mjolnir also being noticed back in Age of Ultron. Like, you see a very small glimpse to it. It's just a very well done, showing that he is a worthy hero. It's nice.
Also,
it's a heartwarming thing.
Thor breaking the tension. Yes, I knew you could.
Yeah.
So I think on that, whilst like reading about Endgame, the reason why he couldn't act, I think the going theory is he could not lift Mjolnir in Age of Ultron because he wasn't worthy at that point, because he was keeping from Iron Man the fact that Bucky had killed his parents, and that secret led to some guilt into him, and he didn't feel worthy. After that secret had been gotten out after Civil War, he was worthy from then, and this is the first time he's actually tried to do it. And I think a big thing in that sequence of the three of them fighting Thanos, using stuff they'd learned from fighting each other in the past. So like when Thor shocked lightning Iron Man, it's like, and he found out that could power up his suit massively, and then he actually uses that, as well as when Steve throws his shield and then throws the hammer at the shield to create the massive pulse that the vibranium.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
And that whole sequence of them using that to beat him works brilliantly. Well, not beat him, but yes.
It was also nice to go back to, same as what Infinity War did, a more focused fight scene. Like, a lot of the times, the big, fat, final fight scenes are in the middle of these cluttered, huge battles where everything is going on. But here you've just got 3-on-1 in this, while not like claustrophobic as some one-on-one fights get, there's just impact, there's a real sense of space, a real sense of momentum in the fight, and a clarity of what each of them are doing. They're not killing faceless henchmen 300 through 342. They're killing, they're trying to kill Thanos, or at least take the glove off him.
It's not like one of those final fights in, say, Ready Player One or a movie like that where you just get the two sides clashing together and you see bodies flying back and forth.
That's later.
But like this first bit here is just very well done, showing the conflict between these people and the struggle. Because even still, they know that they're going to overpower him. There's still a struggle. They don't know they're going to overpower him, but it's a very skilled fight against this man who has basically nothing to defend himself with.
Barring the cool double sword.
Yeah.
Still love that.
Can I just say, I like too how, like, even though, like, because, like, they get sort of, like, beaten down and mostly defeated right before everyone else comes through, right? I like how that's also, like, a reference back to Tony's vision in Age of Ultron specifically, like with Cap's cracked shield and everyone's just kind of lying, like, half dead on the ground.
I actually said that to Jenna. I turned to her and I said, if this doesn't become a hero thing, it's going to be like what happens in the scene, in the vision. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so, should we talk about,
on
Gates?
your left.
Yeah.
Gates opening up?
Yeah.
On your left.
What? Oh.
That's what he says.
Right,
That's
sorry.
a Winter Soldier reference.
Okay. Okay, so gates opening up and everybody comes through. And in this regard, like after the beatdown and the appearance of Thanos' armies, this was one of the few times where I didn't sit back and say, oh god, not another big fat Marvel fight. I was happy to see everyone back. I was, while still the army was kind of inconsequential, it all kept tying back to the game of capture the gauntlet as the fight progressed, and that kept it feeling like it was connected and not just showing off the CG of different characters punching each other. It, compared to, say, Black Panther, where the Civil War is just Punch Boys A versus Punch Boys B, and they've got energy shields and cool African-themed technology. Wow, why don't they have guns?
They got lasers that shoot. They got spears that shoot lasers. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
no.
gonna say lasers that shoot spears.
Why
I want that weapon.
Why do they all go into melee then? Whatever. I'm not talking about battlefield tactics here as long as Zach doesn't start talking about physics again.
This is that scene there was one of the ones where I started to tear up when I saw the characters coming back and almost not wanting to die a second time. They were like, I'm going to stand up for myself this time and we're going to make it a decent fight. And then everyone coming together to work to beat this one common foe. It warmed my little white frozen heart, and it made me cry. I cried a little bit. A couple tears shedded.
I think that moment of the sheer Avengers assemble is an absolute massive fan service moment, and then everyone rushes in screaming and the Avengers theme plays.
Totally
it's
deserved.
It's massive fan service, but fuck you, I love it. And I was sitting there with goosebumps. Every time I've seen it, and a massive smile on my face. That's what everything's been building up to, and it is beautiful. You cannot contest it.
I was gonna say, it's meant to be the end of the MCU. This is meant to be like an end, so they're allowed to do that. Everyone shows up, Avengers assemble, cheesy line. they haven't said it, they get to use it. And mainly just, I almost feel like there's a line where Wong's like, you wanted more? It feels like a reference to like all the TV show characters they weren't allowed to put in. Like, come on, get the Punisher in there.
Punisher. The
Yeah.
fucking Punisher.
Yeah, just get the gun.
The Punisher.
That's
is
what
one-
Bucky's doing the whole time.
The
Bucky
Punisher.
has a gun.
Okay, so barring all the peaking in audio we just did. Okay,
I really
one
have to
thing that I
resist to
really
shout
gotta-
what then.
One thing I've got to stress is that if you enjoy Marvel to an extent, even if you used to enjoy Marvel, a gateway into this scene is having at least once enjoyed Marvel, or having once enjoyed other films like this, or
Except
you
for the
have to
TV
have
shows.
at least some love for it. Like, if you go, it is fan service. It capitulates on so many things. I enjoyed it because it really was Avengers, but this time it's fucking bigger. It's... If you walk in there with nothing but contempt, then I'm not going to say that it's undeniable, like you did. I think that it's fully... it could be seen as fully just flawed. Aside
Yeah.
from the beautiful CG. Just fucking spectacular with that. I've got to see if I can get like a desktop background of the one scene of Captain America staring down Thanos and his armies and just the sunset in the distance. That's just spectacular. Like, there were a lot of points where it just turned into straight vistas, showing off all that modern CG can do.
I want to just say, I have to, you have to admire Captain America's balls. He just had his shield chopped in half, the shit beaten out of him, and he stood up and he was dead ass about to fight Thanos and his entire army by himself.
Yeah.
And everyone else just happened to show up, saving his ass. That's like shows entirely almost what his character is all about. Just the determination and willpower to keep going no matter what.
Can I just say, they didn't have to do it, so like it doesn't bother me, but there's a moment in the Infinity Gauntlet comic where Thanos has killed everyone and it's just Cap, and they have this brief moment where they talk. I wish that was in there. It's the part where Cap's like, as long as one person's still standing, you'll never win. And then Thanos is like, Dave, do you know what the specific quote
No,
is?
I don't know the
And then-
specific quote, but I know the scene.
and then Thanos is like, I think that's some interesting it's not like principles, is it?
Ideals?
Ideals, I think it might be, yeah.
Okay.
That like some interesting ideals to die by. Oh no, interesting ideals for a man who's about to die, and then Cap's like, I've lived by those ideals and I will die by them. Something like that I kind of wish. They didn't have to, and I hope like in the future if they like bring Cap back through some bullshit time travel thing, in, like one more movie.
They were.
Against like a big villain, they have that moment there.
Well, one, they will not. Chris Evans is sick of this shit and he is not going to be in any more movies.
And he'll
Captain
come back
America
in
is
20.
Sam Wilson now. Sam Wilson is your Captain America. If you want something like that to happen, it's going to happen through Sam. And two, I would like to argue, actually that moment did happen. When Thanos is talking about how as long as those who are left remember what was, they will never appreciate what will be. I think is what he said. I might be
So-
misquoting that slightly. But
Hands
that's
on the side.
basically what you're
Yeah.
talking about. And then he's like, so I may as well just kill everyone.
Just quickly about him not coming back. Give it 20 years, you dump enough money on his doorstep, he'll come back for one more.
Yeah, that just makes me feel sad. I really hope it doesn't last that long. At the point where the poor geriatric actors come out and do one last ride and they fall over their walkers, it would be just like you can already tell they're tired. And that's another thing that I want to get into when we finally do the wrap ups on this. So, are we done? Any last thoughts about the battle?
It's not about the battle, but about your geriatrics comment. Stanley, was that actually Stan Lee?
Yes, he
Yes.
filmed it.
Okay.
That
That was one he filmed,
They
yep.
shot Infinity War and Endgame back to back
Yep.
in less than a year.
Okay.
This was all shot whilst he was
'Cause I
still
gonna say,
alive.
or did they do some magic?
No.
They probably could now, though, if they
They-
wanted to.
Yeah.
And some Paul Walker bullshit
Yeah.
to finish the movie.
Oh.
Okay.
But no, so yes, that was actually Stan Lee filmed whilst he was still alive. Rest in pieces.
Yes. Any more thoughts on the big dumb battle?
I like, it's not exactly the same, but the final shot of Thanos, it's meant to be like a similar camera movement to the end of Infinity War where he sits down, but with the opposite effect of instead of him sitting down triumphantly, it's him sort of sitting down and kind of like
Defeated.
conceding defeat. Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a sexist pig here, but that scene where all the women come together and go, "Don't worry, she's got backup." It's like that could have worked with any character. Why did you just have to pick out each individual female character as a way to go?
So that was very much a tribute to the A-Force, which was the all-woman Avengers from the comics. They have been around for ages. This is not a new concept. Something I saw again whilst like browsing Endgame content on the interwebs from Nando V Movies, YouTuber. Something he pointed out to change that women moment to make it Nebula who carries the gauntlet instead of Captain Marvel, because he just sort of flies past everyone whilst all the other women are battling around. If Nebula was carrying the gauntlet, and then as she gets close, Thanos sees her, because Nebula infuriates Thanos, especially as the traitor. That would be a much more betterer. I can English. A much better scene in that, right? And then Captain Marvel's flying around helping clear a path for her, and that would also be a much better, bringing it back to the game of football they're playing and they're shepherding Nebula up the field, as opposed to just Captain Marvel's, "Yep, see ya," and everyone else, they just sort of stand around, and that would bring more into the moment of them, all the women working together.
I was going to say, in regard, like, I think the Russos talked about it, they debated whether they should have it in or not, and then decided, like, every movie has one of these, has a bunch of, like, cheesy posing shots that are pandering anyway, what's one more type thing, so I'm like, yeah, I can... Oh shit, I just stepped on your foot.
Okay, so anything more before we start talking about the fallout and just the finale, the death of Iron Man and the cleanup?
Yeah, I think
Are we
that's it.
done talking about Big Dumb Battle? Okay, finale of Iron Man. Bit drawn out in places, and I found it strange that they, like, while the beginning set up the concept that Iron Man Tony Stark makes these recordings in case of contingencies, the fact that they didn't play back the one other time that we've seen him recording these things, it felt a little bit jarring, but aside from that, while drawn out, it did what it needed to do. It set to rest most of the old guard, the ones that wouldn't come back, and for pretty obvious reasons, because it's been 7 years. How long's it been?
Over 10 for some of them.
For Robert Downey Jr., this is the 11th year.
Yeah, let the poor man rest and go home and do cocaine. Come on.
Bit of a dark joke.
This is one of the scenes that I think is not over, like, drawn out or anything. I think it sort of shows how death affects a person. It almost feels like time does slow over time. I think if they had made it sort of, not so much a passerby, but like a smaller scene, it wouldn't have had the same sort of connection to an actual death, because losing anyone can make time feel like it goes much longer. So when they draw it out, it sort of shows that in a cinematic way.
On that, you can't, if you make that any shorter, it loses any effect it has. It goes for the right amount of time. And I think what I liked most about it is that he doesn't say anything. He just sort of lies there and as the light leaves him, and everyone else talks to him. He doesn't. His last words are "I am Iron Man" before he snaps his fingers, and he just lies there. And Rhodey comes up to him as one of his closest friends, and has his goodbye moment. Peter comes up because he sees Tony as a father figure, and has his goodbye moment, and then Pepper comes up and has her goodbye moment. And I think that is the way they've done it is the only way you could have done it. They couldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah. Even the memoriam scene where Happy says to
Morgan.
It's
Morgan.
a
she. You were
Did I
going to
say
say
his?
he. You were going to say his.
Oh, I was going to say her, but that's alright.
Whatever.
The statement of the cheeseburgers. Even that was an impactful scene. To be fair, the kid's acting, she almost looked like she was going to laugh at the guy, but even that has the feeling of Happy's trying to make her cheery. She's just lost her dad. It's not
looking too hot.
Yeah.
But
That was a callback to Iron Man 1.
yeah.
yes, I want
Yes,
that
it's
American cheeseburger, and more of that nonsense. But anything else about that scene?
I think it works spectacularly. The proof Tony Stark has a heart gets me every time.
I'm a big fat Iron Man movie fanboy, at least the first two. So that callback really worked for me.
It was good.
I like that. I think his name's. I can't think of his name, but the kid from Iron Man 3 is in there. I like that.
Yes.
They don't call attention to him.
Oh,
it is
shit.
him.
I
He looks
was like,
much
who the
older
fuck
now.
is that?
I wasn't sure the first time I saw him. I'm like, is that him? And then it was confirmed later. I'm like, that's nice.
Yeah. I think that whole sweeping shot, and it gives each character or group of characters their moment as they lose a friend. It gives them the time to act it, and the staging of it, as the people who are closest to him are up the front, and as it goes back across, and as it gets further away, it's people who are further away from him as a person.
Any criticisms for it, or should we just say that's about all that we can have about the in memoriam scene?
And that's my heart, my soul.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk any about Cap America's send off, or
Something
aside from the time travel
Yeah,
nonsense?
I think it works.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're doing this well, and while it's a bit pandering, I'm glad. Like, I almost have a guilt when characters are played by the same actors for so long. It feels like you're feeding into a forced system where they're consistently forced to play this role, and I can't. Considering that none of us in this room are older than 19.
Rather that. Okay. I'd rather that wasn't public knowledge, but too
Whatever,
late now.
fuck. It's
I don't know,
okay.
somebody knows you're a teenager when you're a Marvel fanboy.
Have you seen the
Marvel
people on the
shell.
internet?
You seriously think that you're gonna be placed on a hit? Nobody
Ryan,
gives
you
a
can
shit
tell from
about
your
you.
voice.
Nobody gives a shit to that extent about you on the internet. Love you, every fan of the Groovy Movie Man.
All 12 of them.
Yes, whatever. But yeah, I'm glad that they let these guys go instead of turning into the geriatric Avengers. Like,
Well,
the various send-offs, like each one of them either has an out or a way to get out, and it felt, even though like they were being shuffled off intentionally to get rid of the old guard, it still felt nice. It still felt fitting, and it didn't feel disrespectful.
I think, they wrapped up the people who are old in a way, and the character arcs have been leading to that in a sense. Captain America, when the Sokovia Accords came in, he was sick of the government shit, and he wasn't a fan of it, and Captain America almost wanted to leave, and he's been shown to miss his past more and more, which why it makes sense. And I think also an interesting note on that, I mentioned to the scene played out.
Beep. Got a lot of editing to do.
Yeah, it's fine. So as I mentioned to Mark, as that scene played out, I think he had spoken to Bucky before that scene to say, "I'm not coming back." I think Bucky knew, because Bucky doesn't act nearly as shocked and surprised as he should. I think there is a small amount of confusion as he sees him sitting on the seat before it clicks with him, and he tells Sam, "Go over and talk to him." And I think he already had spoken to Captain America about how he was going to pass it on that title to Sam, which is why he stands back. And I think Bucky's already said his goodbye. That's why he doesn't go over. And there are a lot of people who are getting really pissed about how Bucky should be Captain America, when I really don't think
Captain America.
Bucky should not be the next Captain America. I think it makes sense in the way they've portrayed these characters for Sam Wilson to be taking the title next, especially as Bucky is referred to as the White Wolf in Infinity War, who is in the comics a sidekick of the Black Panther. I think Bucky is going to be in the next Black Panther film as the White Wolf, even if it's as a small amount.
but then allowing all of the characters to go out, and they go out in a way that is fitting with their character regardless. Like you said, their character arcs sort of, or story arcs even build up to it. But like Iron Man goes out protecting the rest of the Avengers, and even though he's been shown to be a prick at times, he still, inside of him, loves these people and will do anything for them. Same as Black Widow. She sacrifices herself for the greater good of the other people, and that is something that she does. She sees these people as her family, and she's giving up everything for family. Hulk just sort of, they can get rid of Mark Ruffalo now because they can do CGI, so he's free to go. Captain America gets old and lives his life the way that he wants to, and then Hawkeye
goes off and
bees a family, but no one really likes Hawkeye to begin with. But actually, his character in this I enjoyed more than I had in the previous movies.
He had more time in character rather than shuffled off for the more interesting powers lads.
But then he went, and his way off is with his family. That's nice.
I was gonna say, this is just back to like the argument in the first Avengers where Tony and Cap briefly go at it. This is a good sort of full circle from there, because Cap says Tony isn't the one to lay down on the wire and make the sacrifice play, and in this he does. And Tony tells Cap that there's nothing special about him other than the serum, but he lifts Mjolnir, which has nothing to do with how strong you are. It's about whether you're worthy or not, which is a nice full circle where they proved each other wrong.
I think also with the Hawkeye, he was shown to be very much done with the whole hero thing earlier.
He's
like, no, I'm done. I quit. I'm a family man now. Except then he's like training up his daughter, and whilst he was briefly around as a version of Ronan, not to be confused with the other Ronan, with the big hammer guy. But yeah, so he...
Ronan with an eye.
That opens up the possibility of like her becoming the next Hawkeye. Yeah. And like I think the whole passing on a mantle of the hero is the best way, because that happened quite a lot in a lot of the comics to a lot of different people passing on the title. And I think that's going to be that's a really good way to handle it, especially with the whole aging actors thing. And that's the best way to handle it on screen.
I was going to say, I think we could probably get it now into like future of MCU, but I just wanted to say, the funny thing is with the whole mantle thing is that in comics, it never lasts, because they then they can't, like they could if they put enough money on someone. Like, I think, like, for one more legacy movie, like,
please no.
20 years from now, if the whole universe is going to end, bring them back for one more film.
Let them
just
die
one
in
more.
peace.
Right. But anyway, like, future of the MCU, I was going to say, like, Hawkeye, his series, he's got a Marvel Disney Plus TV series. It's going to be about him training up his successor. That's happening.
Before we go too far into that, exactly what Kyle said. Let them die. That will be the reaction. They will never come back because they know that it won't do well because no one wants it to do well. Most fans don't want them to come back. They're dead. Leave them dead. They've died well. Can we keep it that way?
Or
please?
They've moved on well.
Well, yeah.
Actually, there was that hero that I forgot, the lovely Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Does it mention what he decides to do? Cause
he still wants in this universe, though. He still wants
But I think he will go
Guardians
instead of...
Yeah.
That's future
That's
MCU talk,
actually.
though.
He goes to Guardians.
Okay, so future of MCU. Let's define this as what we think it is going forward and how invested we are in it. Personally, I'd be happy to stop watching here. I
think you were happy to stop watching a while ago.
Yeah, I would have been happy at Avengers, and I'm happy here. I don't think... I'm probably going to do the same sort of thing until Mr. Groovy Movie Man ropes me into another podcast. This fits the bow on most heroes. I could maybe see a few more of the miniature thing or the lesser characters becoming more and more elevated to main roles, but even then, I'm happy with how this ended. This feels fitting. There's a future for the heroes ahead. There's a finale for the heroes that are done. And the universal scale threat is done. So.
You've just caused our lovely Mark to get another lawsuit. Mr. Groovy Movie will actually come and sue him again.
No, the movie man.
That was the movie man.
Sorry.
We've been calling me the Groovy Movie Man this whole podcast, though, so it doesn't really matter. I don't... Look, all those other channels, all those other channels he hit. Nothing happened to them. I've checked. So
okay,
I'm guessing he lost. Let's not get into bullshit law stuff.
Okay.
Wait, let's talk before instead of the Disney Plus shows. Let's talk future movies first. I think we'll do the Disney Plus shows separate.
I've got really nothing more to say on this.
Okay.
My investment is pretty much tapped. This was about as far as I'm gonna go.
It will be interesting to see if Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has Thor in it.
I'm interested.
That's one that I'll be interested in seeing, because I think with James Gunn's direction, because they brought him back.
He's back.
Yeah. With James Gunn's direction, I think that can be a fantastic movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, so the way Thor's character arc has gone, they can't get rid of him, because that's all the only reaction to Guardians 3 will be, where the fuck is Thor? What did you do with him? He's gonna stay, and I think his character arc isn't finished, because he's still coming back from his super depressive slot. And also we should really be wrapping this up. We have crossed the 2-hour mark. People are gonna get real bored.
There's time codes. I was gonna say though, like, I like how this still wraps Thor up enough still. Like, they bring the whole sort of Asgard story to an end, where he realizes he was never meant to be king. And so he passes on to Valkyrie, and he's like, I'm just gonna go off and, see what's happening.
Join the boys.
Yeah, pretty much. One thing I'm excited for in Guardians 3 though is how they deal with Gamora, because now there's an alternate time 2014 version of her running around. Like, because Gamora, the original Gamora, is dead. She didn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to bring it
Yeah,
back.
so there's only 2014 Gamora now. That's going to be interesting. How's that going to play into it?
Well, if you were, I don't know how much attention you were paying, but as Quill's standing on the ship, he's searching for Gamora.
Yeah, I saw that.
So a big part of them will be him finding Gamora and then them conversing. And I think the way that they've already started that arc already, with the conversation she has with Nebula after Chris Pratt's lying on the ground. This is who I chose, and it's like, it was him or Tree. I love how Drax isn't even included, or Rocket.
Teenage Groot is a dick. Plain and simple, he's a dick.
Yeah, that's the point, because he's a teenager.
Yeah,
It's a bit of an archetype.
Well, I mean, he is sort of coming back though as well. So, but yeah. And, like, that's something we have seen. But, yes, I think that's going to be one of the major parts. That's going to be the story of Volume 3, I reckon. Them finding Gamora. And they're probably going to add something else, because that's not going to make for a lot of movie. That's not going to be a very good movie if that's
Adam Warlock.
Maybe.
They teased that in Guardians 2, so you'd expect it to be.
Who knows? James Gunn being like, fuck you.
Any other movies that have been announced as of yet?
There's Far From Home.
Far
But we're not going to talk about that too much, because I don't want to get spoiled on it, because Sony's marketing is shit.
I like the look of Mysterio.
I like them to look at Mysterio. I'm excited to see Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio.
And the Elementals. I'll just refer to them as that.
Yeah, I know they're in it, but don't say any more on that.
I think they're an interesting use of computer graphics.
Every other future movie is sort of like general, like Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2. I'm interested for Doctor Strange 2 just because I want to see Mordo again, because they set him up really well in the first movie. And there's going to be an Eternals movie, but we'll see where we go from there.
There was that whole thing about, like, you see every now and again the big spreadsheet of all the Marvel movies planned out for the next 50 billion years, and on several of them, the Doctor Strange 2 has been listed as Doctor Strange and the Illuminati, or versus the Illuminati. So that title, as a title, brings in that whole, because the Illuminati isn't just like the triangle eye as like the memes know it. They are a massive, well, not massive, but they're still a pretty big thing in the comics as their own subsector, and to bring them into the MCU
but he's a
would be
part
quite
of it
interesting.
In the comics.
Yeah.
At least one version.
Yeah.
To bring them in.
Iron Man is a member of that, and he's dead. And so is Professor X, who doesn't exist yet. And so is Namor, who doesn't exist yet.
But to bring them
and so
into
so does Reed Richards, who doesn't exist yet.
But that's
They can't introduce them as that, though. That would just be weird.
But that's something as well, is when they bring in the Illuminati, if Tony Stark is a member of it, who knows? They might pull it out of their ass. They might have another way to heal him, and it causes it to be able to be a different actor.
I really hope not.
Oh, please
Listen,
don't recast him.
That could be Tony Stark. They could have up on the wall previous members, and there's a homage to Tony Stark. It's like, oh, this one person as a member of this massive group is dead now. Guess that group can't exist. Throw your laptop out the window.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. They can still have this group as a functioning member of the MCU be that, like, they can be a functioning group without a couple of members.
I was gonna say, I'd rather than they not do it how they did in the comics, where they're gonna retcon this group into existence as always a thing, and like what Professor X was always a thing, and Reed Richards was all like, who's the only member of the team is like Iron Man then, because he didn't even meet Doctor Strange until Infinity War. It's not really a group type thing. It's
Who knows, if they get into like alternate reality universes, then we're gonna start fucking shitting bricks. Because
That's the only way I'd accept older actors coming back, if they do like a legacy movie and they have to like go and get like an alternate reality version who's still alive.
Yeah, no, that feels cheap, and that's expanding into the problem I have with greater DC and Marvel comics because of the interconnected web of bullshit, which means that at all times there will be at least one version of Superman, Captain America, Iron Man, or the Hulk running around, or in between in some spin-off they'll be alive. As long as they're marketable, they'll be alive. I'm hoping, against all hopes, that the characters will stay dead in the MCU, even if I'm not as heavily invested in it from this point forward.
I was gonna say, no one stays dead in comics, but ever since Crisis on Infinite Earth, there's only been one Earth in DC. Because all the other universes got destroyed and there was just left one at the end. That was that whole story. They used it
New
to
52.
I think there's still only 2 though.
52 universes.
I don't think that. No, what? That wasn't what it meant.
Yes, it was.
Are you sure?
Certain. I looked up the cosmology.
I could have sworn it was because.
Put your nerd dicks away and let me talk. I think the only way that they could bring in the same characters as the alternate versions of the characters that we're so familiar with in the comics, like how you have the one version of Gwen Stacy as Spider-Man to bring an alternate Spider-Man in, all the different examples of that. And that's the only way those characters can come back without massive fan backlash. It doesn't matter if they're marketable or not. The fan backlash will kill any movies if they bring the originals back after they're dead.
So you say that, but I, as a big fan of the MCU, I'd be fine 20 years from now, and they can only do it once.
A legacy movie.
They can only no. That's what I mean. I'd be fine 20 years from now, and they can only do it once. They do an we have to go get alternate heroes for help, just for like one like. Almost like a wrap it up movie.
You could probably only do it as like a flash shot, like if you did Day of the Doctor, and even then that would be a little bit too much fan service. But just dragging out Paul Robert Downey Jr.'s corpse would break my heart. Like for a full movie length.
You better hope I'm not making these movies 20 years from now.
God,
then.
no.
If you were making those movies, Kevin Feige would beat you with his hat.
I reckon 20 years is enough time.
No,
you can
because
get away with it.
You say to have it as a one wrap it up movie. Endgame was our one wrap it up movie. Infinity War was marketed as a wrap it up movie. You can't keep having wrap it up movies.
They're still gonna go
You've made
past
bloody
this.
past the parcel.
Speaking of wrapping it up.
Speaking
Do
of
we
wrap
not-
it up,
First,
Did we want to do a
pass
quick
the
fire Netflix? Not Netflix. Disney Plus shows.
Not
I guess
really.
Vision's
No.
coming back because there's a WandaVision. That's what the show's called.
this is
In
Could be
some
in the
form.
past.
Well, I mean, the Infinity Stone's still there, so I'm guessing they could just.
Well, no,
stick
but they
it
put him
on.
back in time. So unless they're gonna go get him again,
I think
and I guess Loki's show is gonna be about the alternate version that escaped with the Tesseract,
Oh,
which is interesting.
Jesus Christ, it's starting the infinite amount of universes with infinite amount of characters, so that all the marketable ones are alive. Yay.
Stop Hulk dabbing.
No.
Kyle literally face palmed himself when that part came.
I heard.
I turned around to see his
I
reaction.
heard the slap.
Yeah, no. But look, is there anything else of actual note that we want to talk about? Because the Disney Plus shows, look, they're their own thing, and we can speculate kind of, but this is not what this is about. This is
All right.
meant to be about Endgame. So, final thoughts, final anything?
If not, I'll just close it out.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. All 12 of you. If you made it this far.
If you made
Also,
it this far,
I wanna-
will send you my full name and home address, because Jesus Christ, you're a champion.
I just wanted to say, I don't know how many people will make it this far, but like if you want to like rank everyone of your favorite person on this podcast, just to
Do
see.
not use this as a metric to destroy
I-
and or
Please make
raise
it a
self-esteem.
tier list. Please make
Just
a
for
tier
fun,
list.
I want to see if anyone wants anyone back.
Tier list.
Or if we'll go
of
back
Hot
to
Topic.
I just talked to myself in a dark room.
Everyone vote the fifth person who was in the room and spoke like twice. Make
If
them
You never know.
If you remember
Jenna,
her
you're
name,
number one.
post it in the comments.
All right, we're about to hit 2:14.
Do we
Please
hang
stop.
on, just quickly?
I'm gonna just stop the recording.
Are we ever gonna do this again? I
It's
don't
a
think
possibility.
I could get you in for Star Wars because you haven't seen any of the films.
I don't know. I don't think I would.
For the Rise of Skywalker.
I'd consider doing it again for other films, but not for Endgame, and definitely for something that we can make shorter.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 hours and 15 minutes when I want to cook chicken yams is too long.
Okay.
I still want to do it for the next Fantastic Beasts movie because got some Harry Potter fan. We got some Potter heads in here.
Get this started.
See?
Okay.
We need to do.
Thank you all for coming and sitting through this far. Please hit me up. I will send you my home address.
And
Have
stay
a great
groovy.
day and a great night, everybody.
Stay
Stay
Bye.
groovy.